Hello, please meet today's guest, Samuel Thimothy.
Acquisition plus retention equals growth. We learned that through the hard way, right? Because in the early days, we were trying to figure out how do I acquire customers? How do I retain and grow those accounts over time?
What if I told you that one of the most successful marketing agencies in the Midwest started in a spare bedroom run by two college kids who didn't even know that websites were supposed to drive business? Today's guest is Samuel Thimothy, co-founder of One IMS. He and his brother started their company in 2006, and in January, they'll hit their 20-year anniversary. Along the way, they helped a chemical manufacturing company go from obscurity to being acquired by a $14 billion giant and built a framework for growth that they've now repeated with hundreds of clients. But here's what makes Samuel's story valuable for you. He made a critical mistake early on that nearly buried them. They said yes to everything. Logo design? Sure. Custom e-commerce platform? Why not? And it almost destroyed them. In this episode, Samuel shares the exact framework that turned things around. Acquisition plus retention equals growth, and explains why, as an immigrant entrepreneur, he operates from a place of gratitude that transforms obstacles into opportunities. If you've ever felt like you're putting out fires every day instead of building your business, this one's for you. And hello, Samuel. Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, I'm excited. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Hey, tell us where you're originally from and where you live now.
I'm originally from South India, Kerala. Moved here when I was in my teenage years and have been living in the Chicagoland area ever since.
And a bunch of your family lives nearby, right?
Yeah, I have my parents and my sister lives nearby, and my brother decided to pack his bag and move to Florida, of all places. So he has a team in one of our offices, also based in Naples, Florida.
That's sort of the next thing. So you guys are partners. You started this company together.
Mm-hmm.
So you must really like working together, must really like each other.
Yeah. So come January 2026, will be 20 years in the making. So we've started our business in a spare bedroom in our parents' house in kind of the first week of January. And we were two college kids trying to figure out what to do next with life. And that's kind of the inception of this business.
This company that you're referring to is called One IMS. What does that stand for?
Yeah, One IMS stands for One Integrated Marketing Solutions. It was originally called Timothy Design Corp. We were just a design shop, and then we just gradually became more of a marketing agency. I wouldn't say we had like this big big business strategy and wrote down this business plan of what we were going to do. It's just one thing led to the other, and ended up realizing the biggest need that we were filling in the market was actually helping companies with their marketing, not with the design. Like, we thought we were just a design shop helping with business cards, branding, websites, and those sort of things. But then just gradually evolved into the marketing agency we are today.
So you were really young when you started this.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the driving force? You just really wanted to create your own company, or was there a really specific marketing problem that you decided needed to be solved and you knew how to solve it?
Yeah. So both of us, I have a computer science degree. I went to school in the late 80s, right? Early 2000, trying to get into the computer programming space. As you all know, that was the dot-com boom era. I graduated from college. It was the dot-com bust era. So it was becoming very difficult to find a job. That was part of the driver. And then my brother also finished a business degrees. The environment that we were in, and also just the fact that we were college kids and pretty naive and didn't know what to do with our future. And that's kind of the beginning reason for it. But as far as the need that we saw, we had a lot of people that are entrepreneurial-minded people in the Chicagoland area looking for help with websites, building websites, helping with their branding, helping them get up and running with a business online. That was kind of what led us to doing that. We were already kind of doing design work during college years. So people kind of knew we had skills in that area. So that kind of naturally led us to getting into the design business. But I think the questions that we kept on asking, hey, you built us a beautiful website, but it doesn't drive business. And then we're like, oh, so website is supposed to drive business. We didn't really know that. We thought it was just a pretty brochure. So then we had to research and discover, oh, there's ways of driving traffic to the website. So that's the early days of us getting into the Google AdSense and Google AdWords. That was actually our way of driving traffic to customer websites. And then we constantly get people who tell us, okay, I think whatever you're doing is driving business, but we can't say for sure is what you do. So then we had to solve for the attribution problem. How do we measure that what we're doing is what drives them the conversions, which was phone calls or form submissions? So we started patching up third-party tools to track phone calls, form submissions, which led to us building a secondary business, which you probably interviewed my brother around that topic, which was ClickX, which was a reporting and attribution tool set that we built. That also evolved a lot over the last 20 or so years. But one thing led to the other. So it wasn't like we woke up one day where we're going to be a marketing agency. We were trying to solve for a business problem that each time when we met a customer that asked for it, and then people were willing to pay us for whatever we were offering them on how to solve it. So that's what I would say was our way of becoming a company that we are today.
What would you say your biggest challenge right in the first couple of years was?
I think it was also just heavily dependent on referrals because we didn't really had a good marketing strategy on how to attract customers. So we were just completely word of mouth. So it was more of like a feast or famine sort of a mode in the early years where we're trying to figure out, well, one month we're super busy. We had no time to even get up to breathe. And next month we're like, where's the next paycheck is going to come from? Sort of a scenario. I think that was our biggest hurdle. And I think it's the hardest part an entrepreneur has to go through, right? Once you determine like, okay, you want to start a business, but if you don't know how to consistently get customers, that becomes your biggest challenge to overcome. It doesn't
Sure.
matter. It doesn't matter how great your service is. It doesn't matter how amazing your output and product and quality or all of that. If you don't have customers standing in line to buy from you, don't matter. It's just a hobby.
Yeah. Um, we kind of got in this current company of mine, we kind of got fooled because we got a great lighthouse customer
Mhm.
right away when we first got started. And so great, in fact, that just immediately just to work with us, they paid us $1.5 million.
Mhm.
So we thought we've died and gone to heaven, and
Mhm.
this is just amazing. And they worked with us for 2 years and we figured out product market. Well, we actually got minimum viable product. We didn't really have product market fit yet because we didn't have like customers 2 and 3.
Mhm.
And then things went haywire for us. And it's a
Mhm.
long story. I don't want to go into it now. But, from then on, it was like struggling to find customers.
Mhm.
And that was the sign of real problem for this particular company.
Mhm.
Um, and it's any company, just like you said,
Yeah.
you have to figure out how to get a steady stream of customers.
And solving for that problem that we have, we actually built our own framework, and that became kind of our our guiding principle that we implemented for customers. So if I can take a minute to explain it, we built a framework that we call our growth formula framework. It's acquisition plus retention equals growth. We learned that through the hard way, right? Because in the early days, we were trying to figure out how do I acquire customers? How do I retain and grow those accounts over time so I can grow? When most businesses they struggle with, they sometimes are good at delivering the first service. If they get a customer, they know how to do a first service, but they haven't figured out how do they continue to add value so that they would have a reason to pay you on a recurring basis, right? So we figured those two combination out, and then we figured out, okay, if I can figure out a systematic way to create interest for the product or service that I offer from a very specific, narrow set of customers or audience that I want to get in front of, and then I keep adding value for that business by offering something that they are willing to exchange money for, then I can retain them long term. And then there's a bunch of other frameworks that we implemented for retention, expansion, reviews, referrals. There's a lot of things that we implemented, but that framework is what we ended up then kind of almost trademarking it and then implementing for customers. And that became kind of our marketing agency that we are today.
Sorry for the interruption. But in addition to the podcast, you might also be interested in the online program I've created for startup founders called Who Says You Can't Start Up? In it, I've tried to capture everything I've learned in the course of founding and running 9 startups over 37 years. It's 4 courses, each one about 15 video lessons, plus over 130 downloadable resources across all 4 courses. Each course individually is only $375. The QR code will take you where you can learn more. Now, back to the podcast. There's no startup that's more than a few minutes old that hasn't had a mistake or a failure or whatever you want to call it. So over all these years, you've probably had your share of mistakes. What would you say is one that taught you like the most important lesson in business?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake that we've made early days, right? We're just trying to make money. Then you try to be everything to everyone. So someone comes to you for a logo design, you become the branding and logo guy. Someone comes to you for a website, you're the website guy. Someone comes and say, build an e-commerce store. For example, we had one company that was a refurbishing of printing equipments. So they came to us with your scenario, a very hefty check. And they said, we have a lot of money. We want to build an eBay for printing equipments. We're going to pre-sell machines at people's print shops that trying to get rid of it. We're going to have it listed on our website. Then we're going to sell it from our website and then get shipped out of whatever the printing shop it's sitting at. And we built a shopping cart, completely built with auctioning capabilities and everything else because somebody said, hey, I want to pay you to go build something custom. That was our biggest mistake because people were willing to pay for all kinds of random marketing related services. We just thought, okay, we just need to meet the need. Let's find somebody else who can do that job. Let's just try to get that money. But that was the mistake that I think cost us the biggest headache, the sleepless nights, and all the frustrations that came along with it. Because all day, every day, we're just trying to put out fire from all these different problems we caused ourselves. So I would say that is the biggest lesson, or I guess the mistake that led us to the company that we are today.
Well, what's the story about client success, a particular client success that made you guys sort of go, aha, we're onto something very big?
Yeah. So early on, I said that we got into Google Ads and figured out how to offer Google Ads as a service to drive traffic to customers. That led us to figuring out that we can also drive organic traffic to the client websites if we figure out how to optimize for the right keywords. So we got on the content marketing and SEO wagon very, very early on in our life. Just because of the physical location of our company, we're based in Chicago. We had a lot of manufacturing companies in the Chicagoland area. So we often say we took companies from obscurity to market dominance. There's plenty of stories I could share. One particular one is one of our companies. It's actually a chemical manufacturing company made epoxy flooring solutions for commercial industrial applications. So they're not using it for garage floors or anything like that. Their customers are hospitals, large industrial facilities like manufacturing facilities where there's chemicals that falls on the ground, or slip resistance is an important use case. They made those kind of custom flooring. We helped create content and optimize their website for very rapidly able to drive traffic for them. Most of their sale came from contractors coming to them and say, hey, I need this much flooring. Give me a quote and give me the material. But the biggest problem they had was they had no control over their sales because they were at the mercy of the contractor coming to them with opportunities. They said, this is our problem. We cannot grow because we don't know which contractor is going to call us tomorrow with a job. So then we realized, okay, we have to change this game. We have to change this paradigm. We have to figure out how do we attract potential buyers that come to you first asking for the flooring options. Then you determine which contractor you give the job to the ones that has the best capabilities and has the track record of using your product and getting the best, best installation experience for your end customer. So we created a content strategy that drove a lot of traffic, and then we systematized the lead conversion and routing of those leads for them. So if they get a 50,000 or more installation job in Iowa, they had 3 or 4 contractors that was perfectly suited for doing that job. They will route the leads to them. Once they give them these leads, after a few months, they can ask like, well, I gave you 17 leads. You only gave me 1 job. What happened to the other 16 of them? So if you see contractors that were just saying, oh, I don't know, I went with another cheaper option, then they stopped giving those contractors leads. So they were able to control the lead flow. They were able to control their destiny. So that company became extremely successful and was acquired by a $14 billion giant in the market. Just came and gobbled up that company because they were like very visible on from what we've done for them. So that was just one example of a manufacturing company. So we were able to repeat that process for so many other smaller, mid-sized manufacturing companies that were kind of trying to do the very same thing. So I would say that was one of our founding moment where we saw, okay, we got something that is really valuable for businesses.
So over the years, you've probably developed some core principles. I mean, you
Hmm.
started off, really young, and so you probably didn't have a core set yet,
Hmm.
but 20 years later, you must have a guiding set of core principles for how you run your business.
Hmm.
Can you describe those? Can you share those?
I mean, principles in the form of like our value system for our company, or
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we say people passion, performance. Those are kind of core three things that we're a people business. We're even though we're tech enabled consulting company that focus on sales and marketing for organization, everything is delivered using people, right? So we say at the forefront of it, we are people that are adding value for organizations, right? Both when we create value for our customers, we're also creating economic value for our own team and our organization. And we think, passion is an important part of what we do. If we don't care about the companies that we're trying to help, we can't serve. For example, out of college, I worked at Coca-Cola, but I never really enjoyed sugar water. So I kind of felt like I wasn't doing the best job I can by promoting this sugar water to the rest of the world. And I didn't really have so much passion in it. So I had to get out of that. But in the marketing world, I find so much joy in helping an organization go from obscurity to market dominance, finding their business challenges, all the issues that they're running into in their sales and marketing, and coming up with a solution on how to help them go from where they are to where they're trying to go to. So there's a level of passion that drives what we do. So it's not a job. It isn't, I get to do this, right? And then performance. I often tell our team, like, we never got fired from a company. It's the only reason we ever gotten eliminated is because we didn't do our job right. We didn't produce the value. If I'm getting them 10x the value of what they pay me, I will never get fired. And I often say the contract is not about retaining your customer. It doesn't matter. Customers can find a way to get out of the contract if they can show you that you didn't deliver on the promise that you made. So people passion performance. If I cannot produce the positive ROI that the customer is expecting, it doesn't matter. They will get rid of me. So those are kind of the core principles I would say we use to operate our business on a day-to-day basis.
How big is the company? How many
We're
people?
we are about 50. We're a distributed team right now across the globe. We had our primary office was in Chicago, and then my brother decided to move to Florida, and then we started hiring during COVID people outside of the Chicago market because we were no longer confined in that one physical location. So we have team members in Colorado, in Connecticut, in Texas, obviously in Florida, and Tennessee. So we just kind of became a distributed team after COVID.
I know you don't both have the title CEO, but are you both really kind of like co-CEOs? You're both running the company?
So I oversee the One IMS brand, and my brother runs the ClickX brand. So we've kind of have divide and conquer model. Never really, I don't know. I think when you're in front of a customer and you're also doing a little bit of sales conversation and stuff like that, having a CEO title didn't make a lot of sense to me. And so that's why I'm more of like a chief growth officer, because that's my primary responsibility as a leader of this organization. I'm also sitting in front of companies that are looking for growth. And that's where I focus my attention on. At the end of the day, just title is just a title. You have a core function that you're trying to fill.
Right. And so do you have are you always meeting on Zoom, or do you have a place where you also have a fair number of your staff that you can meet with in person?
In Florida, we do. In Chicago, we became more of a remote team just because nobody wanted to go back to our downtown office after COVID. Part of the team members, they kind of moved away to other states just because they were able to. So that reason we have like more of a virtual environment where we can meet clients in the downtown office. But for the most part, our clients are kind of distributed as well. So we do a lot of Zoom meeting, or we will make the trip to their offices and traveling around the country as needed.
Your brother got out of town because he couldn't stand the cold.
Cold, and also poor policies of Chicago, which we certainly need to have a separate podcast to talk about that.
So, one of the things that I've experienced myself, and I talk to people about who are
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, is that you learn a lot about yourself when you're doing this. What have you learned about yourself?
I think I learned early days impatience was a problem. I think later on in life you realize like a lot of things that doesn't they don't go as the way that you planned. You can because you as an entrepreneur, it's your baby. You're gonna work a lot longer hours, you're gonna put a lot more effort, but your team members, they have a life. They're gonna put a certain amount of energy and resource into whatever their responsibilities are, but they're just gonna call it quit at the end of the day. They gotta go back to their personal life and whatever else. So I think just learning to show grace to your team members, meanwhile you're still having patience to see things through. I think when it was just my brother and I, we just pulled all nighters to get websites launched and get things done because we made a commitment. We had to stand by that word, and we did it. Oftentimes we lost money in the process, but we've done it. But then later on, we couldn't put that same level of pressure on our team members to do the same type of work that my brother and I did. So that was kind of a big lesson learning. And it's still a lesson sometimes because you want certain things done super fast. And we're still, even though we're 20 years, we're still operate like what Amazon says, day one added to it. We just don't know, right? Like anything could just happen tomorrow and change a lot of things in the landscape. And we're seeing that happening pretty rapidly with AI innovation as well.
Is there any way in which you're still using your computer science background?
I'm glad that I didn't actually have to stay in that space. I would kill myself if I have to do debugging codes and looking at errors and figuring out why certain function didn't work. But I think the logical things of going and solving problems, certainly think this is another area, right? Where like there's thinkers and doers. Sometimes you kind of have to do both as an entrepreneur. You have to think and do at the same time. There are certain problems, and I am like, okay, it took me 30 seconds to come up with a solution. Why didn't this individual who came up with a problem couldn't solve that, right? So I don't know if that is the training or years of 20 years of actually just being in the field and doing so many things, or is it the prior experience of going through a engineering program like computer science that gave me that skill? I don't know. But I would say I'm not coding, but I certainly have some sort of a logical mind to solve problems.
Hi, the podcast you are listening to is a companion to my recent book, Tech Startup Toolkit: How to Launch Strong and Exit Big. This is the book I wish I'd had, as I was founding and running 8 startups over 35 years. I tell the unvarnished truth about what went right and especially about what went wrong. You could get it from all the usual booksellers. I hope you like it. It's a true labor of love. Now back to the show.
I have a computer science background too, and I think, well, I agree with you, first of all, that it's a mindset, a way of thinking. But I like even doing the podcast
Hmm.
where I'm doing all the post production myself because I love doing it.
Hmm.
And I'm writing scripts and doing stuff in Python. And so, it's, it's not exactly what I was doing as a computer science,
Hmm.
PhD student back at Duke, but it's still, I think there's still a little bit of that in there. it's
Yeah.
kind of, it's kind of funny. And I enjoy using the tools
Hmm.
to sort of put all this together and seeing how efficient I can get at
Yeah.
the whole post-production process, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have the desire and the interest for it, I think it's good. On the other hand, technical problems stalls my performance. So when I'm like, for example, like there's so many things that we have configured in our HubSpot instance. When a lead comes in, the way that it gets routed, the way that a certain pre-intro emails get sent out, a meeting gets created, sent, booked, and a deal gets created, and a bunch of other things happens. So like there's certain things don't work. I can technically go to a workflow and try to go through all the logical ifs and if and then statements and figure out myself. But I would just go crazy trying to go through why it didn't happen a certain way it was supposed to happen. So we have team members that I would just call and say, "Hey, John, can you figure out why this didn't work, or why all of a sudden this decided to act this way?" I think what I have come to realize is, yes, could I solve it? I can, but is it the best use of my time, right, to do that, right? Could I just share my big picture strategy or what I have in my mind? Somebody else who actually enjoys tinkering with that technology, let them go have their fun and solve it. So I come to realize that, and I just kind of delegated some of those responsibility. And even I have my own podcast. I have a cadence. I have someone else that does the outreach on my behalf, gets meetings on my calendar, and I just show up and click the record button on Riverside, and then they get notified that there was a recording get done, and they will follow the process on post-production recording, sending them notification when the episode was done and published and everything else. And even just trying to get me to approve the episode is a hurdle because I oftentimes don't have the time to go and watch a full episode. So I'll be like, hey, is there anything you found that wasn't good that we need to trim? And if so, trim it. If not, just go with it. Right. So I think, I don't know. And I think it's just me finding, like, what do they say? Like your zone of genius, right? Like there are areas that I enjoy. Problem solving for clients, marketing challenges. Those are things that I actually enjoy. But sitting there and tinkering with technology is not one that I would call enjoyable.
Well, I have to partition my life, you see.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm doing Dover work,
Uh-huh.
I can delegate.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm doing the podcast, there's only one person I can delegate to, and that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a staff or a company, around the podcast.
Yeah.
It's a labor of love that I'm doing. I just last week I recorded episode number 100.
Wow.
So
Congrats.
it's just 100 people telling their stories
Yeah.
about what went right and what went wrong and whatnot for them.
That's impressive because most podcasters start, but they don't keep moving.
That's what I keep hearing. And someone from your team
Mm-hmm.
told me that a podcast that gets past 100 episodes
Mm-hmm.
is in the top 0.5% of all podcasts.
Yeah. Because most
just-
people kind of give up after a while because they don't get the momentum. They're not getting guests or they're not getting the traction. And obviously they went into it with the wrong intention. Sometimes they think they can quickly monetize it. Like those are all the wrong reason to be in it. But I do a podcast. It's called Coffee with Closers, where I interview entrepreneurs, and I've been doing since I was doing about 24 episodes a year, but I've kind of cut it down a little bit just because it was becoming a little bit more of a taxing on my time. But my goal was not to make money. My goal was to build relationships. So kind of like these conversations, I was able to connect with CEOs of companies that I would never get an opportunity if it was a pure sales outreach. But if I invite them to be a guest on my show, I was just trying to build a relationship. That's all I cared about. So I have so many more doors and access that I never had. I never had to use those access, but I have a relationship and I'm able to text them when I have a question or something like that. So that's how I decided to do the podcast, and I just continue to build them, but not looking for a million downloads or a massive sponsorship opportunity.
Yeah. I have no intention of monetizing it. It really is trying to build this, very substantial reservoir of good information. And the reward that's coming back is that
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to work very hard to find guests
Mm-hmm.
because the word of mouth is starting to work really well.
Mm-hmm.
And the listenership / viewership is steadily climbing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. And it's so much fun. Hey, I have one more really important question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, grit would be described as resilience, sort of stick-to-itiveness,
Mm-hmm.
courage, fortitude, words like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, and my experience is that all startup founders exhibit those traits. And so I want to ask you, where does your grit come from?
I think I'm an immigrant. So when you're brought into a country of opportunity and you've given a chance once in a lifetime, you can't take it for granted. So I think I come from a perspective of I have an opportunity. I have to be a good steward of this opportunity and do the best I can in supporting my family and obviously supporting people that work for us and delivering on the promises to our customers. So I think that's where I operate out of a heart of gratitude, I would say. I mean, we're in the month of Thanksgiving, and I even keep reminding my own children about it. So I think if you have such a attitude you will do wonders in your life, because I think you will see every opportunity as a learning lesson, not an obstacle. And you'll figure out, how do I overcome this so I can get to that ultimate purpose that I have in life? So I would say that's where I'm probably operating from.
That's a good one. I mean, I hear lots of different answers to this, but that's a good one. How many kids do you have?
I have 5 children.
Are any of them in the range of 4 to 9?
Almost all of them are, except one is 13 and one is 1. So yes, varies far apart, but I have 5 children by God's grace.
That is fantastic and a lot of fun. I'm sure it's a lot of
Yes.
fun. I
Yes.
think for a second I might have heard the 1-year-old in the background.
Very likely. She's always calling dad out throughout the day. So and
Well, that's great.
that's one good thing came out of COVID was when I had an office in downtown Chicago, I would leave home at 6 in the morning and didn't leave office at 6 o'clock until 6 because the traffic was horrible. So I wouldn't come home for more than 12, 14 hours a day. And so I didn't really see the early years of my first few children. So after having COVID, I think I started working from home. So I was able to spend more time with my children and being around them, right? Even if you're not always sitting down to talk with them, you're always running into them and talking to them and giving them a hug and doing all of that. So I think that's one blessing that came out of COVID.
Yeah. And you never want to give that up again.
No, not at all.
Well, thank you very much for being on. This has been fun and interesting, and I think valuable to our listeners. So thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
And now for your toolkit takeaway. Toolkit number 1, stop being everything to everyone. When customers wave money at you for random services outside your core, it's tempting to say yes, but don't. Samuel learned the hard way that chasing every dollar leads to sleepless nights and constant firefighting. Pick your lane and own it. Toolkit number 2, remember that acquisition plus retention equals growth. Most founders obsess over getting new customers, but forget to systematize how they keep and grow those accounts. If you're not adding ongoing value that customers will pay for on a recurring basis, you don't have a business, you have a treadmill. Toolkit number 3, control your lead flow, control your destiny. Samuel's client was at the mercy of contractors bringing them random opportunities. Once they flipped the script and attracted buyers directly, they controlled which contractors got the work and eventually got acquired for their market dominance. Don't wait for business to come to you. Now go audit your customer list and ask yourself, am I trying to be everything to everyone, or am I building something focused that I can scale? And that is our show with Samuel. The show notes contain useful resources and links. Please follow and rate us at podchaser.com/designing successful startups. Also, please share and like us on your social media channels. This is Jothy Rosenberg saying, TTFN, ta-ta for now.